This is Rachel Vermilli Otis of Punch Tape Consulting, and welcome to the first episode of the AI Marketing Stack podcast. This is my first podcast of any type, and so come with me on this journey as we figure out how to do this, how to speak to the camera when it's pretty weird, and how to actually post podcasts. So anyways, a little bit about my background and why I decided to do this. I started in technical publishing about 20 years ago and was very taken in by the opportunity to provide insights to a community in terms of education and inspiration and innovation. And I've always just found trying to synthesize that data and bring forth voices and information to the community is something that I really enjoy doing. Of late, my work has shifted more to the content marketing space, and I have been looking at a lot of the AI tools on the market, as I'm sure many of you have. And I feel equal amounts of excitement, curiosity, fear, confusion. And so I thought maybe you feel that way too. I don't know. We'll see. I also, funny enough, in sort of the first few waves of podcasting was like not really into any of the podcast. And this last 6 months have kind of gotten into them. I wonder if it's because I cut cable away and I started to look at different places for my content. Anyhow, so I started this one because it seemed to me like while there were some podcasts and there's some information out there for marketers, there was still a lot of confusion, fear, and interest out in the world. And so this is my attempt to do a few things. One of the first things I wanted to do was to take a page out of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation's notebook and pull together a landscape. And maybe this is already out there. And if it is, do let me know. And maybe we can augment it with the work that we're doing here, is putting together a landscape of what has come out in the space, in the AI space, and the AI agent space, especially around marketing. Because it's a new area, there's so very many startups. And frankly, there's also those companies that are out there that already have, like Adobe would be one, or HubSpot, or Salesforce, that have a huge offering that they've augmented now to include, all of these AI enhanced pieces. And so it's kind of hard to, A, first of all, you have to know what you're looking for. And then B, what does one offer that the other doesn't? Why would you use this over that? And so one of the segments that I'm thinking about including on the webcast is sort of like a first look at a particular tool. I think that would be helpful. Literally, like I would sign up for a free trial and then kind of go through what they have. We could do sort of a versus. I'm not sure. But anyway, so I want to do something like that. That's really practical and takes a minute and kind of gives what's missing around some of this that I'm hoping to provide is some context about, what are first steps that you would take if you want to look into something for, how to upgrade your SEO strategy to make sure that it is, and this term is still changing a little bit as my understanding, to include the LLM chatbots and the AI summaries that you see up above. It's either GEO, I've heard it called, or AEO or AIEO, or even throwing LLM in the mix. So pick your letter. But basically, you've seen, just like as a person in the world, when you search something now, you see the AI summary, or you yourself are using ChatGPT to search in a slightly different way. And so how do you start to get your services or product to show up on that, or your thought leadership pieces? That's something that I've been definitely looking at. And so, I have launched a business, which is separate from this, but I have been trying to figure out what are the different ways that AI is impacting this. And so that's sort of been my journey. Every day it's something different. I had a super exciting day yesterday where I found out about Google Opal, where it really was like a no code tool that you could create an app with. And I'm definitely going to talk about that in a forthcoming episode. And what I'm using right now, Riverside, which is all of these things where it used to be, like record something, invite, someone in, an interviewee, and now, edits out the ums, which I'm sure there are plenty of. It fixes the sound. It takes different pieces out so that you can make YouTube shorts. It's like super exciting, but also really overwhelming and a lot to keep track of. So anyways, one of the things I was thinking is, like I had mentioned, doing this in the way that the Cloud Native Computing Foundation has done, and have sort of this landscape where it's the central location that basically you can go to and look at in different categories. What are the different availabilities and where are they at, and etc. So that's one thing I'm going to do, but it's definitely something that I'm going to need help with. So if you're interested, reach out about that. The other thing I wanted to talk about was something that I had mentioned in a webinar I'd given in December. So this was something that I had put together in terms of how AI technology is making an impact, as you can see on the slide here. These were the areas. And again, this is, can be a conversation in the comments. These were the general areas that it had looked like things were changing, right? So we talked about discoverability with the SEO stuff. Authenticity and trust is a fascinating area, again, that I think will be the topic of a future episode that we talk about. Personalization, which has been around for a while, but can get super, super intense and specific now because AI is processing all of that data much faster and better than we humans could. Research and analysis is sort of general, right? Like, I have had some experiences using ChatGPT where it just feels different than when I use regular search. I can kind of ask questions and it brings back more context heavy answers than if I was just doing a straight search in, say, Chrome or something. Orchestration and automation, I think, is where you're going to see people start to change right away, where there's AI enhanced CRMs, where you're going to be able to see customer journeys better, even though that they're fragmented across different areas. And then again, since I come from sort of a content background, something that is specifically interesting is sort of like creating these content and image assets and experiences. And what is the role that any of these sort of generative AI apps can have on content creation? What should they have? What do you feel like is okay for that to do? What is it able to do? Right? I have definitely used it as a partner in creating content. I've had a lot of fun using Canva to create imagery. I don't think any of these replace humans, but they sure are fun. And I could see definitely how it helps with speed, and it can definitely help with derivatives, because again, there's such a fragmented sort of world out there that it really doesn't behoove you to spend all of the time that it would take to, resize or edit out something or change it up so that it fits with Instagram or YouTube or TikTok. So I think that's someplace where I think it will all be welcomed, but making that connection, making those sort of operational changes sync with strategy is going to be something that we can see in 2026. So I'm going to be doing that. Another thing that I have been interested in is sort of taking some of this AI jargon and bridging the gap, I believe is what I called it. I have a little mini series called 30 Seconds or Less, where I explain what is an AI agent, what is a RAG system. It's not always a generative AI, but I have started there because that is something that is very popular and interesting for people at the moment. I feel like there is a gap oftentimes with a new technology where technology, the technologists are speaking one language and the business people are speaking another language. And how do you bridge that gap? A, in understanding, and then B, how does a certain technology come along and change business outcomes, not for the sake of it exists, but how does it actually innovate your business? So I found that really interesting. And I think that is probably it for now. Oh, the one last thing I wanted to say is that I would definitely be interested if there are, like I said, I definitely want people to let me know what they're looking for and how this podcast can be helpful. But I would also love to allow the Daily Show have sort of special correspondence. Like if you have something that you have created or you've worked on and you want to put together a little segment, definitely open to receiving those. I think that would keep things really interesting. And the other thing that we're definitely going to do, and I just did this, is have an interview every time with someone talking about some topic that is between marketing and technology. And we've done that this time, and I think you're going to enjoy it. So that is it for now. Please stay tuned. We will have more details and more inspiration and demystifying and fun, I hope, in episodes to come. I welcome you on this journey, and I look forward to this. Thanks so much. Welcome to our very first AI Marketing Stack interview. We are going to be joined by Maureen Blanford of Serendipitous, which she started in 2023. And previous to that, she was a CMO at various companies. She has been speaking all over the globe, both in front of a crowd and in meeting rooms. And I thought this was a great first interview, one, because she is great to have a discussion with about marketing, but also she talks a lot about how legacy technology and data have such an impact on how we can basically do our jobs better and well. I think it will bring this community together to know that we all sort of share this common issue or set of issues. And I hope it starts a lot of conversations around how we can deal with this technology debt. And with all of these interviews, I want to make sure that we're always coming away with something that we can actually do differently or think about, in that very week. So without further ado, here is the interview. A big thank you to Maureen. Hey, Maureen, thank you for joining me today.
I am delighted to be here with you.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing now to just get us kicked off.
My goodness. So I am a B2B human since the early part of my career, and I care passionately about B2B, and there's always a lot of nonsense in the B2B space. And as a former tech CMO on both sides of the Atlantic, I have been solving for a while the just data health issues that have plagued me as a CMO and certainly plagued my colleagues in sales and success and product. So I am really focused on helping folks understand the root cause of what our terrible data situation is.
So did you realize, I think we all kind of see this. Did you realize that data health was basically one of the big blockers to success for these teams early on?
It really kind of came to me about 10 years ago when I started digging in and knowing how much of, in particular, product marketing, sales, and success, how we're all supposed to be rowing in the same direction. We care about what kind of product we're delivering, getting new customers, retaining customers, expanding. And when you look at the reports all of us have to get insights and share data, none of them match in any way. And most of them have nothing to do with what the customer cares about. It's essentially what the tech is able to do and not do. So yeah, it started to occur to me about 10 years ago, and that's when I really started digging in.
So, I feel like if you're in a business of any substantial age, like more than a startup, the technology ecosystem is fragmented and not nice. Very, very horrifying. So these, legacy systems, and I feel like they become legacy systems so quickly as you just like add on pieces. Is it the data? Is it the workflows? Is it how we're organized? Like you said, we're supposed to be all rowing in the same direction. What do you think it is? Or is it maybe a combination of all of the above?
It is definitely a combination, but I can tell you kind of the root cause
Mm.
is most of the tech that we're using today was really invented 25 years ago around the birth of Salesforce. And that was predicated on the tech that came before it. And it was very rudimentary. But what's happened is all of the functionality in the tech that was built in and then hard coded in 25 years ago, we've just continued to build onto and band-aid across and try and get API band-aids to get something chalked to the other thing. And when you actually look at it, it's actually fairly easy to see. If you actually look at like a spreadsheet report from any one of these systems and you look at the data categories across the top, that will blow your mind. I mean, the data categories that exist for us today truly have nothing to do with what we're building, how we're selling, or those kind. It's just how computers could talk to each other in like 1990. And that's
Yeah.
all been hard coded in. And we've been dealing with that ever since.
That is tough. And between the 25 years that things were hard coded, AI has come around again, right? And AI works on data, so I feel like it's just these issues have been amplified. What is blocking these teams from addressing these underlying issues right now?
So a couple of things. The tech is siloed and the humans are siloed. Um, and humans, by and large, every time I speak somewhere, someone will come up to me and say, "Oh my God, we thought this was just us." But so you have people who are afraid and they're ashamed of the data they have, which makes them not want to work with others because it's embarrassing. And then you have the tech that's really siloed. And then you have people increasingly are working like 100-hour weeks. You go to bed at the end of the week with 5,000 things not done. So people's capacity. So where does anyone start? Because there are a lot of people in organizations who are willing to work cross-functionally, and there are a lot of people who aren't. And so one of the places where I want people to come together to start to structure together upstream and do small data sets and get bigger is I want people to coalesce around the outcomes they're promising to the market, because that is
Okay.
one area of tech where in product marketing, sales, and success, everyone cares about. So if you can find an area that everyone cares about and start planting seeds, how can product plant seeds in the tech ecosystem that they have to understand this? What can sales be doing? What can marketing be doing? What can success be doing? So start with a topic that everyone has to weigh in on. And then you see once the data starts auto-populating, and then that data set becomes helpful to everyone in the organization. And that's where you can start to get some camaraderie or some collaboration around it.
Okay. So that is a great way to start. I think that aligning goals with your partners and starting with something small that is going to actually impact your work in the short term makes a lot of sense. And we've talked about some big issues that I think are daunting, like everyone wants to be data driven. That makes a lot of sense to me, right? And a lot of this is becoming enhanced by AI, which only amplifies the problems that we're having with the data, right? But those are longer term problems. And I'm not saying we shouldn't strategize to pull that together. But what are some things or some further things that like a marketer or salesperson or adjacent can do today after listening to you that they now know that they don't have to be ashamed that their data is a mess? Everyone's data is a mess.
Yeah. So one of the things that you were talking about data driven is today the tech that we've all inherited across product marketing, sales, and success. And I know your audience is marketers, but the key for me is every functional area. Marketing has insights today that you could be getting from product sales and success outside of your marketing tech stack. So that's why I think it's important that we start looking at what's available across. And primarily the data that we have today to be data driven is activity and consumption data. How many things have they done? When did they do it? We don't understand the why. What did we say that made people lean in? Why did they stay? Why did they bail? Why did they come again? Why are they buying and not buying more? Those types of things. So the thing you can do today is take your most successful product or take the product that you feel like should be doing better. And there are 3 questions you can ask yourselves. And that is, what is the outcome you're driving for? So it's not like, let's say you're selling an account planning solution in the sales tech stack. So one of the key things that's important about account planning is getting to know key players and key accounts. It's not selling account planning. So one of the things we could ask those customers is, how important is it for you to know your key players and your key accounts? How good are you at that today? And if you were better, how important would that be to your business? So find some questions that you might want to know that would be helpful to understand how your customers feel about the outcomes that you're driving. And so when we look at how important is X to you, how good are you at X today? And if you were better at X, how would that impact your business? And imagine yourself asking customers that. So the things you might be looking at are sending out an email campaign where the subject headers align to the outcomes you're promising. So you can start to see not just how many were opened, how many were clicked, but how many regarding outcome A were opened versus outcome B. So you can start to see what outcomes are resonating better. Sales and CSMs can be asking those questions to prospects and customers, and product can find ways to see the outcomes that customers care about, start tracking utilization against that. Where are customers in the product and where aren't they in the product? So that's just one example today. I'm going to repeat the questions. How important is X to you? How good are you at X today? And if you were better at X, how important would that be to your business? And that's something you can track across the board and start to see, wow, we really thought our audience cared about A, but they seem to be caring about B more. Or people in Europe care about B and people in North America care about A. And then those are insights you can take right back into your business, what you're building in product, how you're doing campaigns, et cetera.
So I think that's a great way to build some quality around, or qualitative data around quantitative data, right? And like get at the why, like you were saying. I think you kind of talked about this a little bit, that, at best, if you do have data, it's in silos. People are in silos. Oftentimes, you don't have ownership over how the data is controlled. What tools that you're using and stuff like that. What about people who don't have that control but still need to improve their outcomes, right? How do you get a word in edgewise, I guess, into that sort of infrastructure?
Yeah, we totally understand that, because at Serendipitous, we actually don't want to integrate with other systems, because in integrating with other systems, we'd have to legacify what we're doing. And so we like to see teams starting out, whether, on your own, you don't need us, on your own, start looking at this stuff in spreadsheets. So for instance, you could be looking at email subject headers. On your next webinar, ask these same questions. Hey guys, how important is X? How good are you at X today? If you were better at X, get that from your prospect webinars. If you're doing product trainings with customers, ask them those questions. If sales and CSMs are willing to ask that. So you're pulling that Excel. You're pulling data from your listening tools, whether it's Fathom or Zoom or whatever. And you can start to pull those into spreadsheets. And what is really cool about that is you start to get this initial data, which is so interesting. And then that helps you build a case for doing the next thing and the next thing, so that you don't have to go up against your internal systems teams, your RevOps teams, whomever, to try and get them to change stuff. Make the change, gather the data, and then use that as a case study to scale that internally.
Yeah. I think it's about getting everyone on board, like you said.
Exactly.
So let's say you start to do this. How do you see things, like, say, a year from now, right? How do you see all of these different teams, like the marketing team, the product team, sales, success teams? How do you see this changing their roles?
So I see this is just such a better way to be operating. So understanding going in, so Rachel, you and I have been doing that for years. So we know how hard it is. We know how put upon, particularly sales teams are, when we say, when we say, hey, go pull some people for a customer advisory board, or CSMs ask them to do this product. Some big customer comes in and wants some weird thing. And so the product team has to upend their product roadmap. Like, it's so onerous on everyone when we don't stick to a plan. And so people are naturally going to feel unwilling to do that. But what happens here, because the data is so valuable for each team, that you have a process in place. So like, let's say the product roadmap, the product teams, the roadmap is upended because some big customer wanted some weird thing. And you don't have any data to say like, well, that weird thing that they want, like everyone wants, or that weird thing that they want, like we're not hearing that from anybody else. So that's how it can impact the product team. With sales, by asking sales and CSMs to be asking the same 3 questions, for instance, creates data and insights for a sales organization, for sales leaders to start to see trends about what prospects care about, and how to kick off demos to be able to lead into their pain. So it helps us bring new energy and then get new insights. And marketing, marketing is going to be, I think, the most agile to be able to get this data and tweak campaigns and content. So it gives everyone across the board many more insights for them to be doing their roles better.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of upside. There's a lot of noise right now, I think, around, apps are here. Do you have data? A lot of talk about how the customer journey is fragmented and you really need first party data and stuff. So I think this feeds into that first party data story, right? That it makes a lot of sense to me. But even if you have the data, you need to make sure that it's something that you can then get insights from, which I think is, so that's sort of where it's not necessarily in your wheelhouse, but you need to get, partners that are a part of your company and proof points, right? I mean, there's nothing more powerful than that. You had mentioned when we talked before this about a data health study. Did you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, so this is really mind-blowing for me. So we'll be releasing it. I'm partnering with a globally renowned organization to really look at the state of data health today for organizations. Do they trust the data? How much are they cobbling data? Because we know with all of the noise in the marketplace about AI and just process automation, are we using AI to just do legacy stuff faster, or is it bringing new paths to us? And really the state of data health in organizations today with just legacy infrastructure. And again, it almost doesn't matter how old your company is because we're all running on the same stuff. And what we're going to see pretty easily with this data health study is just how grim the actual data is today, and how that's something that's going to need to be addressed sooner rather than later. And it's just the conversations are so compelling and it's really grim.
Very interesting. So, okay. So we'll definitely keep a lookout for that. We'll, when that does publish, we'll make sure to let our listeners and our viewers know about that. Also, we want to let them know about the good work that you are doing at your company, Serendipitous, and we'll put that in the show notes, definitely. I think that this is something that I bet you 99% of marketers out there are dealing with. And to your point, many, I don't know, shame. I mean, they're annoyed, I think, at the very least. But it just seems to me like this is something that you can what I like about your take on it, I guess, is that you're like, hey, there's a problem. We're working on it. Surprise, I have a solution. But also you can make incremental changes, and see those changes in the short term. So is there anything you want to leave the listeners with? I'm hoping on a hopeful note.
Yeah. One of the best things that you can do is pull some reports, and I'm happy to put a link to this in the show notes, but pull some reports. Think just the visual of looking at marketing reports, So it could be your SEO reports. It could be content reports on what you're publishing and when. Look at your won loss reasons. Look at your retained churn reasons if you have them. I'm telling you, cuckoo bananas. Um, if you can get utilization studies from your product team, great. But the thing here is, once you look at those kind of side by side, you'll see there is no rhyme nor reason to any of it. There's no storyline we can connect outside of, again, activities and consumption data. And so
Yeah.
that, I think, can be one of the most compelling things you can do internally that can drive some conversation about surely we can do this better, and then make some suggestions around how about if we just start by looking at how our market feels about how good they are at X. But really looking at spreadsheets that you're pulling from systems to see how data is categorized today will be a light bulb moment for people.
Amazing. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. And I want to thank you for your support of the podcast as we are new. This is the very first episode. So I appreciate your willingness to come on.
Well, thanks, Rachel. It's been a thrill. I'm just such a fan for all the years that I've known you. So delighted to have these conversations.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.